So good morning and welcome to our monthly Goleta RAP meeting where we open it up for community concerns. So this is our monthly meeting where we discuss homelessness issues throughout the city of Goleta with all of our service providers here, as well as city staff and city elected officials. So we have with us today Chuck Flax, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chuck Flax. I'm the Goleta's Homelessness Services Coordinator.
And then we have with us Mayor Paula Perotti, if you want to say hello.
Hello, everyone. Mayor Paula Perotti. I sit on this committee as well as the homelessness standing committee that we're having a meeting today at 11 o'clock. So along with Stuart Caston, Councilmember Caston. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. We also have Jaime with the city of Goleta, if you want to introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me better. Jaime Valdez, Neighborhood Services Director.
And then we have Fernando and Todd with us from Good Samaritan. If you want to wave, Fernando. We have Sarai and Saul from CityNet. Our Good Samaritan and CityNet are our homeless outreach providers, as well as Lucille Boss with the County of Santa Barbara, who's heading up the encampment response program. And I'm Landon Rank. I'm the operations manager with SB Act and here with my colleague Kai Tilley, who is helping us out today.
I think it's important to note, Landon, too, that we have from our Public Works Department, Paul Medell.
Oh, thank you.
And then our Parks and Open Space Manager, George Thompson, as well from the city of Goleta.
Good morning, everyone.
And George said that he is in the car right now, so he may not be able to respond just yet. So we'll start with just some general announcements. Mayor Perotti mentioned the Homelessness Standing Committee meeting. So Chuck, do you want to share more about that?
Yeah, so today is, we have occasional, sorry about that. We have occasional homelessness services or homelessness standing committee meetings, which is two members of the city council. They hear preliminary issues related to homelessness and then bring those issues as appropriate forward to the full city council. The meeting is a public meeting. I've put the link to the meeting in the chat if people are interested in attending. Today's meeting should be pretty interesting. We're looking at two specific legal issues. One is a proposed ordinance that would designate certain parts of the city as either high fire areas or areas where encampments would present a significant public nuisance. And the members of the city council and city attorney will discuss what such an ordinance might mean for future policy at the city. We also are looking at expanding some of the ability for the safe parking program. This is an amendment to an existing ordinance to allow the safe parking program to have more spaces in the city of Goleta based on the current ordinance. So it should be, it's technical, but I think it's a pretty important to the future of homeless policy in the city. And that's from 11 to 1.
Thank you, Chuck. And I saw that will be at City Hall, but there's also a Zoom link available if you click on the link that Chuck put in the chat window.
Correct.
Just a few other dates to put on everyone's radar. So as Chuck mentioned, that's today at 11. And then this Thursday, we will be having a neighborhood walk. And so the purpose of these walks is for us to visit the highly impacted regions throughout the city of Goleta and to kind of get a sense of the area, as well as to talk to business owners and understand the impacts that they're feeling and help them to understand what resources they might have at their disposal through the city and through our outreach efforts as well. So we welcome you all to join us if you're available this Thursday at 1:30 p.m. We're going to meet in front of KFC on Kai Real, and we're going to walk through the Kai Real shopping center there. And then our next community concerns meeting will be again the fourth Monday of the month, June 26th at 9 a.m. A few other general announcements before we get started. So at last week's County Board of Supervisors meeting, the La Posada Dignity Moves project was approved. So this will be a series of cabins. We formerly referred to them as tiny homes at the former juvenile hall site. This is not in the city of Goleta, but it's near the city of Goleta, and we'll likely be able to serve some of the people from that jurisdiction. Lucille, do you want to share any more about that?
Sure. I just first want to thank the community for really showing up and coming out, and huge thanks to SB Act for sharing, accurate information and encouraging folks to learn more. Just really appreciate that, and appreciate the Board of Supervisors. This is how we resolve encampments. It's with Shelter Services and Housing, and this provides a dignified bridge for people from encampments to get the services they need on site and bridge to permanent housing. So very, very excited. There is a community meeting May 30th in the evening, and I can share more information about that, Landon, for folks who really just want to learn more. If you didn't get a chance to attend the Board of Supervisors meeting, but I can also put my contact information in the chat if folks have questions. And I think we talked about it during last Tuesday's meeting, but the Rankin Review Committee that reviewed the proposals has selected and recommended Good Samaritan to run the services on site, and that'll include mental health, substance use disorder treatment, really on site, in partnership with like behavioral wellness and public health and others. So that contract will go to the Board of Supervisors later this summer. But just really huge thank you to everybody for coming out and supporting and wanting to learn more. Is that going to answer any? Is that what you're looking for, Lynn?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, we're very, very excited about this. That's many, many more people that will be able to exit street level homelessness and begin the transition towards housing. So I think we're all going to see the impacts in our community. So thanks to Lucille and everyone who's worked on this, everyone who spoke at the Board of Supervisors last week. And the last general announcement is we've talked about this in the last couple of meetings, but the Highway 101 corridor has been undergoing a series of cleanups by both Caltrans and the Union Pacific Railroad, because both of those properties that's what those Highway 101 properties are. When you're driving down the freeway and you see encampments on the side of the road, it's often on either Caltrans or Union Pacific property, not in property owned by the city of Goleta. Both of those organizations have been conducting these cleanups in this last month, and Union Pacific really started theirs just last week. So we do anticipate seeing a lot of movement. A lot of people are being displaced from those encampments. And so we anticipate that this will just change where the encampments are around our community. So I don't know, Lucille or CityNet, if any of you all would like to share more about what you've been up to.
I'll thank the providers for being out there to support their clients who are unsure of where to go when there are limited shelter beds. But when I think the city of Goleta, I think their shelter beds at Pass are full, or there might be one available right now. So just thank you to the providers for being out there to support folks when they're trying to move their belongings.
So because of all this movement, we do encourage you to keep helping us identify where the encampments are so that we can send the services to the correct locations. I put the link in the chat window to the City of Goleta's City Assist, which is a place that you can report encampments so that we can direct those services. We also want to encourage any community members to take advantage of the City of Goleta's homelessness response directory, which I'll put a link in the chat window. This is a list of numbers you can call if you see different things, whether it's a fire, whether it's just a trash pile, whether it's an encampment. This is who you should call and how you should respond. I don't think that link came through correctly, so I'll try and resend that if needed. Any other general announcements before we get to talking about impacts?
I feel compelled to say this, and I apologize if it's out of turn. I spent the weekend in the Bay Area. My stepson was graduating from University of California, Berkeley. And if you go to the Bay Area or if you go to Los Angeles, the presence of homeless encampments can be a little bit astonishing. But I have the privilege of going regularly to Oakland to visit friends and family. And something I've noticed, and I think it's a lesson for us, is yes, there continue to be encampments that keep popping up. Lake Merritt, which is one of my favorite open space park areas in Oakland, has a series of tents that I saw this time as I walked around the lake. But it is probably a third or maybe even less of the number of tents that I saw the last time I was there a year ago. And you might ask, well, what does that mean? And I think for me, what it means, it's a complex story of people becoming homeless, people still struggling with a lot of issues like alcohol and drug problems or mental health issues, and communities not knowing well or having the resources to completely respond. But then on the other side, and if you look at the media up in the Bay Area, they've opened hundreds and hundreds of these cabins that Landon was talking about. The La Posada project is a good example. That's turning encampments, that's reducing the numbers of people significantly who are currently in encampments, and it's creating an avenue for people to get out of homelessness. And so but what's sobering is to realize that it's an ongoing process. So I'm looking forward to working with you all as we sort of continue the process of moving people through our homelessness system. And that's why it's so exciting to have Lucille here. It's so exciting to have all the providers here. The role of SB Act is critical because it's a pipeline. When we start to talk about what is functional zero, and that's a technical term in homelessness, that means you don't end homelessness for everybody, but you create a flow. And so people when people become homeless, the hope is that it's one time, that it's rare, and that it's a brief period of time in homelessness. And so that's what I'm looking forward to in Goleta as we build out all of these resources. But it's going to be an ongoing struggle as long as our real estate values and property and rents, et cetera, are so sky high. We're going to continue to struggle with this. And I want people to be prepared that it's not something we can just like clean up and have it be done. So sometimes I get discouraged, sometimes I'm excited. I think I'm a mix of both this week. And again, thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Chuck. And the good news is there is a lot being done right now to improve that pipeline and that flow. In addition to the La Posada, we also have the Buena Tierra project in Old Town Goleta, which will be almost 60 units of permanent supportive housing for individuals who are formerly experiencing homelessness, as well as another project in the city of Santa Barbara, the Veracruz Village. So we're expecting to have a lot more options for people opening up just in this year or the next year. So, but we need to keep going. It doesn't stop there. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to some of our outreach providers to offer some updates about what they've been doing in the city of Goleta over the last couple of weeks. So why don't we start with Fernando and Todd with Good Samaritan.
Good morning, everyone. This is Fernando with Good Samaritan Outreach. Last week, we did quite a lot of outreach actually in the kind of no-LEDA areas. We covered quite a bit of ground in those few days. We identified some new encampments, actually a lot of new encampments in areas that we would just walk past and not really dig into. We also got to experience, just kind of irrelevant to this meeting, but we actually got sent out to Santa Maria and just to see how their navigation center runs. And it's quite different, just different areas, seeing the different areas and kind of just services that are available and stuff, just how different things operate. It's kind of what we were doing last week. We got someone into Hedges and made a few referrals throughout the week and stuff, but that's about it. We got one client into a sobering center. It's kind of not, unofficially, not officially not our client, but we just extended the services for someone who was staying in Goleta, which is cool.
Great news. Thanks, Fernando. And then our CityNet team, can we hear an update from the city of Goleta?
Morning. This is Saul. I'm going to be providing the update because Ellen's out until Wednesday. But because she got out, I think since like Tuesday, so there wasn't much done in Goleta. And then our team was asked to be on standby because their supervisor was actually the person out during the clearings. So let's see, as far as like Goleta, they were able to get one person onto this shelter bed. It's a nonverbal client, so there was like accommodations made so that he would be able to communicate. I think Ellen made him like a communication sheet with different visual cues that he could point to so that they can assist him better. And like I said, I was on site during the clearings because a lot of the clearings were in Goleta. That's where they had started. And we were really just on standby to help with storage access and to transport people to shelter. We were able to get 2 people for sure into shelter. And then one person we're waiting for his response. And then if he doesn't accept it, we're gonna get somebody else in, which is gonna be awesome. And then this week, we're gonna be, because a lot of the people were cleared, we're gonna have to go back and kind of identify which sites are active now and then just mark places that have been abandoned or cleared for sure. And so that we can get a gauge of where people are now.
Thanks, Saul. Yeah, and we can hear there are individuals who are willing to transition into shelter, which is great. We know that having options like dignity moves are going to be even more appealing for individuals. So excited to be able to offer that in the coming months. Let's go to George and others from the city of Goleta just to share some updates.
Sure, I'll start. We've got a big influx of folks that have set up encampments at some of our open spaces, particularly Elwood Mesa. This week, I believe we're going to have some additional services provided. Fernando, looks like you might want to say something. But I was contacted over the weekend and then did my own site visit last week, and it looks like we may have 4 to 6 new encampments out there just in the last week.
Thanks, George.
And just goes without saying it, but I'll say it anyways. Our big concern right now is fire risk. As even though we have got these foggy mornings, the vegetation is quickly drying out.
And I think that goes to the point that was made earlier about where folks are going. We saw, I mean, the UPRR corridor looks like night and day compared to last week in terms of folks that got moved from Caltrans property to UPRR now are gone. So obviously now the question is where have they gone, and what can we do to make sure we can mitigate risk and kind of help them along their way to getting some of the services they need in housing ultimately. But yeah, this is definitely now the weather is getting more and more worrisome, even though it looks a little dry or a little wet in the mornings. It's definitely drying out in the late afternoons.
Sure. Also, additionally, I'm not sure you're aware, but the large encampment at the Glen Annie northbound off ramp was they took care of that one and lifted everything and removed all. There had to be about 20 or so people. I don't know who were in there. I mean, you may know better. Santa Barbara Act may be dealing with them, but they're going to be headed into town as well. And as George mentioned, he probably started seeing a lot of those out in Elwood and smaller camps popping up all over. But it's something we'll keep an eye on and work with.
And I did want to commend our city public works team for, clearing up over the 217, underneath the 217. We had gotten a number of complaints and concerns about trash and other kind of items out there. So I drove by yesterday at 11:40. It looked squeaky clean. So thank you.
I mean, that's a great point. If I could bring that up here, just to let you know, I did get a call from a local resident, as Chuck did, and their concerns about that area, and they wanted to do some cleanup and actually did for themselves. They went down there and I told them about our process, and we prefer they not do that because a homeless person's items, those important items to them may not be important to you, but that may be their only important items. They may have items that, that it could be their license or something in a trash item that you're not aware of. And we don't want to get you involved in that. And there's also fecal matter out there we had to have cleaned up. So we prefer that the residents stay away from those areas. Please contact us. That is our job. We're going to do our best to mitigate those issues and those problems down there. And and help those people out as well. So if they can refrain from picking up trash or going in there and doing the work themselves, please give us a call and contact us. So I appreciate that.
Paul, you mentioned the Stork. So on Stork and between Hollister and Cathedral Oaks were a number of encampments. Can you be a little more specific about what you were aware of that was cleaned? And then Lucille also made a reference in the chat to some cleanups that were going on there.
Sure. So it would be on the north side of the 101 corridor when you get off the northbound Glen Annie off ramp to your right. If you were to head towards the Glen Annie Golf Course or Cathedral Oaks, it was originally a large encampment that they had taken care of about 1.5 years ago. Does that seem correct, George? And then it was repopulated, and they had to go in there and do it again. So now that one's been cleared out again, and we're going to see the results of that soon, if not already.
Thank you, Paul, and thanks for the discussion around the trash pickup.
Sure.
Chuck, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was, Lucille, I don't know if you're available to comment. You posted something in the chat about quick response.
Sure. There was a site that was behind housing development, I think an SCE plant that's off of Hollister and kind of that Glen Annie exit. And folks, I think because they were warned about the Union Pacific, they kind of moved elsewhere, or they were moving out. But it was off of the Union Pacific parcel. It was public property. So quick response went out there and removed anything that was remaining after we confirmed with the outreach team that people were no longer present.
I don't know if CityNet or the Good Sam team can report on what the current status is at that site. So it's kind of in between the vitamin shop area and the mobile station. There's been sort of movement of different encampments there. I don't know if anybody's done a recent survey.
As far as, go ahead, Saul.
From what we've seen, it's really just, it's going to be like the same people moving back and forth, because where you're seeing the person kind of setting up right off the off ramp to the right, that person was originally there before the clearing, and then they had gone over to where the vitamin shop is. So I can see them kind of migrating back and forth. It's really going to be the same people just moving back and forth in the same areas, but because we have been mostly focusing on like the clearings and stuff, we haven't been able to go up there, but we can try to go tomorrow and then let Ellen know as well, so that she can follow up at the end of the week.
That's great.
And then Chuck, I've got an update on that site as well. Our staff were out there on Friday last week. It looks like the encampments themselves just east of Pacific Glen HOA and Glen Annie Stork. Those encampments have moved, so they're no longer set up there, but there's several large piles of mostly trash, but maybe some personal items mixed in. Lucille, this is just south of the SCE substation. So I think you mentioned this site, but I want to make sure that we're not talking about the same one, because we're coordinating with the HOA on cleanup and SCE.
Right. Between the SCE site and the road, is that Glen Annie right there, or Stork?
Correct.
So that one quick response was out to remove any remaining debris last week.
Okay. There's I'll follow up with you offline, but we've got a couple large piles that are kind of hidden, stashed away in the shrubs that may have been missed.
Thank you, George.
This is Fernando. Just to George's point, as the increase in the open areas, I just logged on to Fulcrum and saw the pins. We had actually visited those sites on Friday, Thursday or Friday, and no, that was Friday. Sorry about that. And we did identify a few new camps. I saw the request for service pins on there, but just a little bit to the right of them are the the current pins where we added site visits and pictures. There's a few camps that are really large that have additional camps that are just dumping piles for trash. I know, like he was saying, it's green now, but it will dry out, and it's kind of I mean, it's pretty, eventually it will get a little sketchy and just scary if it were to catch on fire. But we did also identify a lot of trash sites, honestly, last week, just camps that have been torn out, with the clearings, just an increase in phone calls for services. But the Elwood Preserve area is kind of, I would say it's a new hotspot.
So again, we rely on information about where to go to find these encampments and help try to connect individuals with services. So if you see anything, it really does help us if you're able to share that through the City Assist link. So with that, I want to open it up for community members to share any concerns or questions that you might have.
Hey guys, this is Taylor Horn with Majestic Assets. I really didn't have any concerns. I just really wanted to say thank you guys for all you guys have been doing. You know, I've seen a big change in the town, and it's really been a nice thing to see around. And that's really it.
Thanks, Taylor. Appreciate you being here.
Good morning. This is Kimber Lawrence. I really more so have a question. So my team was approached, I want to say must have been Thursday evening, by a homeless gentleman who was literally asking us if he could sleep in our vehicles, our parked vehicles. So my question is, do we have any immediate places for them to maybe go? He had no phone, no access to communications. So is there any just immediately in Goleta places that he could go? Or my team can direct them to, because this will be the second or third time someone's, asked or actually slept in our parked agency vehicles. So we just want to know where we can assist locally, if anything.
Kemba, does he have a vehicle?
I'm sorry?
Does the person have a vehicle?
They do not. No, they do not. We had one gentleman who was sleeping in our parked agency vehicles. So that seems to have been resolved. But then this person approached my team as they were loading a vehicle for an event to see if he could sleep in our vehicles. So
I'll put in the chat for everybody where people can go for information. But the biggest limitation in our county that I think we've talked about is literally not having any beds for people to sleep in.
Okay.
But I'll put information so people can call or show up to places to make sure that they're connected with our system.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Kemba, you're with ComUnify, right?
Yes. So it was at our 5638 Hollister location.
Yeah. So first of all, I want you to encourage you all to download the response directory that Landon has, because there are numbers to refer people to there. And I would have suggested, I don't know if this guy knows about the rescue mission, but even when our official shelter beds are full, the rescue mission typically does have beds for people. It's not ideal. It's not service oriented. People have to be out. They have to be in by a certain time and out by a certain time in the morning. But it is a place to sleep. If someone really wants to get off the streets, the rescue mission is a really good option, and they've refurbished. It's a much more hospitable place to be.
So what about his issue of no transportation, no cell phone?
So in this case, I guess my hope and request would be that ComUnify might be able to give him a bus pass to get down to the rescue mission.
It was after hours, so most likely, that's what it was. It was after 5:30. And so the team, pretty much everybody had gone except for these two, my two staff. I gotcha. Okay.
In the case with the rescue mission, you do have to be there, I think, around 5. I think.
So he would have missed the deadline. Okay. All right. Good to know.
So it's hard. The hope is that social service agencies can kind of link together to give people some resources. But as Lucille pointed out, we are very short on places to sleep.
Okay. All right, good. I'll use the resource. My team didn't have the resource. I was actually in a lead Goleta class, so I wasn't very useful at the time. So I'll try and I'll make sure they have the directory and the information in their cell phones. Thank you.
Thank you, Kemba. I think that's just a good case study of how frustrating the whole experience can be for people experiencing homelessness, as well as the service providers.
Yeah, he had recently got out of prison, so he had nothing. So yeah. All right, I'll make sure to share the info with my staff so we can share it.
Who is the person? This is Judy Nason. Who is the person to contact when identifying trashy homeless places? Is it Fernando, George, or Jaime? I think you've all said who would be the person.
Hi, Judy. This is George. Probably direct those incidents to me,
Okay.
and I'll put my contact information in the chat. You can also use our city website to do what's called a city assist, and that's just a way for us to track any sort of request that comes into the city. So you go online, enter in that information, and then it'll go into our computer system and be routed to the correct person.
Yeah, the other reason I would recommend it to everyone on the call is we're really trying to push city assist, and then unless it's an absolute emergency, then 911. What it does is it kind of just standardizes and makes sure we know where things are coming from and how often. And it's hard to know that if we're not tracking it. And I hate to sound bureaucratic, but that's helpful for us. And then we can see the breakdown of calls, either how many in a certain area or during a certain month, and then relative to the other calls that the city gets for service. So one way of showing and getting more resources, right, is through showing the need. And so that helps.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Perotti.
Just a quick question to Jaime, possibly. When you do City Assist, I've been trying to promote City Assist as well. Do they get a call? What's the process? Do they get a call back, letting them know that they're, or an email, letting them know that they've been heard and when staff's looking into it? What's the follow-up on that?
So the way it works is as soon as you submit an email, you get a response saying we've received your information, and it actually gives you kind of like almost like a tracking number. And so with that, then whoever's on the backside of it will go through it, and then eventually they'll contact the property owner or the reporting party and let them know what the course of action will be. If it's something that was immediately taken care of, they'll be notified and say it was closed out. If not, it may say we may need a little bit more time. But the idea is that person can always go back to that record and know what's the status. And then for us as well on our side, we can go back and look at it and say, oh, cool, that thing was closed out on Thursday of last week, or it's still open, we need to follow up.
Thanks, Jaime. That's really good information for me, because I'll be doing a table at the farmers market. So maybe having the directory resources available, and also a city assist information for people so they know, how to use it, would be helpful to, I'm out there sometime during the farmers market on a Sunday, sometime in June. So I'll get in touch with you and get.
Yeah, no, perfect. And the whole idea is that the resident gets a response immediately and it's documented, as opposed to, calling around, leaving a voicemail, and then maybe, figuring out who it goes to. It's just a little quicker, and we can assign it to the right person to close it out and respond to it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wanted to point out too that Cora Patton from the Safe Parking Program put her contact information in the chat. If you see an individual in a vehicle, that's a good place to report, so that she can reach out. And then Fernando from Good Samaritan put his information there as well. Randy.
Hi, good morning. I've just been coming here for a couple of months, so this may be a topic that's much too large or you could refer me to, but I was wondering about the care courts system. Is that operating now in the state, or in particular is it operating in this county? And who administers that? And how does, is there a way to find out more about how that works?
I can speak to that. So that'll be through the court system and with behavioral wellness. Our county is not up and running yet. I think most of them will be by the end of this calendar year. But right now, so I can send you a little bit more information so you can follow.
Cool. All right. Thanks.
Other community questions or concerns? If not, we might take a little bit of time to just talk through a couple of the hotspot areas that we haven't yet mentioned today, although I think we've actually touched on quite a few of them. Let me look through my notes, but George or others, are there any spots that you want to touch on while we're all together?
We covered Elwood, and just want to let everybody know we are coordinating with UC Santa Barbara, both the North Campus open space and the UC Coyle Point Reserve, because there's a couple encampments on their property as well. They actually have a much easier time moving those encampments off of their property because they're an educational institution. And then our other big areas are, as Mr. Medell mentioned, across from the Glen Annie northbound on-ramp, or sorry, off-ramp, essentially Del Norte, Glen Annie, along that riparian corridor along the creek there. We've had a couple folks move into that zone. So we've been coordinating with Dos Pueblos High School, the adjacent property owner. And then the last area is Lake Los Carneros. We have our parks and open space maintenance staff walking the area and trying to do early detection for new camps that get set up. And then our process, once we discover them, a lot of the folks that are on the call that are coming from the homelessness services arena, those folks go out either same day or same week and try to make contact. And then we also have our community resources deputy, Aaron Roush, who's also very engaged in this issue. He will often do a site visit as well, make contact.
So the other regions I have on my list are just checking in again about San Jose Creek. Last week we talked about there might be some individuals migrating to that area from the cleanups. And then the other was the Dos Pueblos High School property.
Yep, let's take that first one. Sorry, the last one there, Dos Pueblos. We believe that issue has been resolved, and this is again just west of Glen Annie, heading towards Cathedral Oaks along the creek corridor there. Most of that is owned by Dos Pueblos High School. So we've been coordinating with their school deputy, George Hendricks, and also their facilities maintenance folks. So the encampment is no longer, but I believe the school district's cleaning up some of the remaining trash that was left behind. The Glen Annie, or sorry, the San Jose Creek corridor. So just for everybody's reference, this is all.
Yeah, so I was out there actually Thursday and Friday conducting a graffiti removal along the side of the bridge there. There was no action or individuals under the Cal Real bridge, but they were under the Caltrans bridge. I noticed 5 individuals come out of that area. So that may be a place that they're frequenting right now. And you might want to put them on your maps and identify those individuals, but they are living under there.
Great, thanks for the update. So just for everybody's reference, the San Jose Creek corridor is essentially from Maravilla, the retirement community north of Cayo Real. There's an open space that merges into Maravilla. And then the southern extent, so you basically follow the creek under Cayo Real, under 101 Railroad, and then it comes into some private properties. And ultimately it comes down to Hollister, and we have encampments along that stretch all the way down to essentially Goleta Beach, along the bike path there. So our team has generally referred to this area as the San Jose Creek Complex because there's often movement between camps. Some of them are on private property, some are on public property, among a variety of public agencies, flood control, City of Goleta, Caltrans, and then quasi private UPRR. This one is particularly challenging because there's a lot of movement and a lot of people living along this creek corridor.
Thank you, George.
Is it
That's gonna be a tough-
allowable
Go
to,
ahead, Judy.
sorry, is it allowable to, as long as you don't leave trash and start fires and things, to camp on public property as long as there's no sign posted to stay away?
So
Like at the library, there's a sign that says that's public property, but you're not supposed to camp
Yeah.
there.
So part of that is what we'll be discussing today at 11 o'clock. It sounds like you're prepping the discussion already. So there's the major case law that governs how we deal with people experiencing homelessness in public spaces is the Boise decision, which talks about, you know, you can't prohibit someone from sitting, lying, or sleeping on public property. And so it's a hard thing to define if you say, okay, well, someone just is lying down or sleeping, you know, in a creek bed. That's not necessarily illegal. But, you know, when you say, well, are they allowed to be there as long as they don't leave trash? You know, I think the answer to that is oddly enough, yes, but how often does that happen and what are the impacts, right? So, if any of us decided to just walk down to a creek and kind of just hang out and have, you know, a sandwich or something, and we fell asleep and took a nap, we wouldn't be breaking any laws. But the issue starts to become when, you know, people are pitching tents and staying and camping there. It gets a little harder to define. And then also what we're trying to view this from is a public safety and risk mitigation strategy in terms of people often do bring propane tanks or other items that can cause fires, or bring trash and debris or create, you know, human waste, any number of things that would be in and around the creeks. And so that's part of the challenge, and that's part of what we're talking about today at 11 o'clock as part of the ordinance amendment. Because basically that Boise decision rendered the no camping on public property kind of worthless at this point. So we can't enforce that, and we don't want to be sued either for it. So we're trying to find a balance that looks at the risk for safety and sanitation with the protections for people who are experiencing homelessness, that you can't just make it a crime for someone to be sleeping you know, on a public piece of property. So long-winded answer of saying it kind of depends, but technically we can't really refrain somebody from sleeping in a creek bed.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the 11 o'clock meeting, is that in the chat? How to get access to that? Is this a Zoom meeting?
It is.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's at the very, very top of the first chats. I think Landon placed it there. It says, oh no, that's the homeless directory.
I'll put it in the chat again. So it's
Okay. Yeah, it's you can attend by Zoom. You don't have to be physically there, although our 2 council members are required to be there in person.
Thank you.
Thank you, Landon.
Yeah. Anything else? So seeing nothing. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I just, I was thinking about Kimba and this man that just got out of jail and has nothing, and what can we do for him? And I just wondered if there's any, if you have any updates on any day centers in Goleta, or any, what's the future for some, emergency overnight shelter in the Goleta area somewhere. I feel really bad about people getting out of jail and not having a place to go, because we're just sending them back into the life, whatever got them into jail. And And it would be so nice to have some place they could go when they, you know, get out of jail.
Lucille, I don't know whether I don't want to put you on the spot. I don't know whether you're aware of any of the relocation services that the jail offers. I don't, this person fell through the cracks, but I think there may be some services available for most people. Isn't that true or not?
Yes, it depends, as with most things, whether it was federal, state, or local incarceration. And there are various officers that are supposed to be working on discharge planning. Again, federal, state, or local. I can find, I think the working groups, I think next week or the following week, are talking specifically about discharge planning, so that everybody has more information. But I can try to get some information before then.
Yeah, so that'll be June 21st. The county's homelessness working groups will be talking about that issue specifically that we see with both jails and hospitals locally.
And then, Mary, you may be identifying, so I come from cities that are much larger than Santa Barbara's, where relocation planning and support services are offered by a variety of nonprofit organizations. I don't know whether there's any local nonprofits that specialize in that. I actually did some social research on this issue, and the key factor is A, having a place to go when you're released from an institution, and B, a job. And it's a fairly straightforward kind of service providing method, but I'm just not aware of currently of anybody doing that very locally here in Santa Barbara, unfortunately.
We've also, in the city of Santa Barbara, we've just connected, have not really done anything, made anything forward with this, but we've connected with a faith-based group that does a program within the jails. And they've connected with us about, hey, we know a lot of the individuals that are getting released, they end up on the streets and they often end up back in the jail. So can we have a better, I don't know, link between the two of us? So it might be interesting to see if there's any way that we can form some sort of support there. But I'm happy to follow up with you offline about that, Mary, if you're interested.
Yeah, thanks, Landon. I'd love to. Yeah.
Please include me too, Landon.
Yeah, will do.
And any progress that we make on, any day centers or wouldn't it be wonderful if we actually had an emergency shelter, so that, and the people that come to our luncheons on Tuesday often, they're out on the streets, and Fernando and Todd have been so great at helping get some of those people into Good Samaritan hedges. But, we still have others that come every week and say, I'm tired of living outside on the streets. Where can we go to sleep? And of course, we have the Super 8, the new name, Super 8, to look forward to, but that's a little ways down the road. And probably most of the people that we serve lunch to on Tuesdays are not going to get in there because they're because of emotional or other mental health problems or alcoholism or drug addiction. So, I just love to see something for these people. We just feel sorry for them. And we give out sleeping bags and blankets and clothing and food and even to-go food, but that's not going to last them through the week,
Wonderful job you're doing, Mary.
Oh, thanks, Judy. You too.
Any other questions or comments before we close up today? Well, we hope to see some of you on the Zoom or in person at 11 a.m. today. And then again on Thursday, 1:30 in front of the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Fernando, go ahead.
I had a question just in regards to the service tracking app that you guys, that the city of Goleta has. Is that something that us service providers should use when responding to a certain encampment, or just continue using Fulcrum?
So yeah, the tracking that we talked about, City Assist, we want our service providers to use Fulcrum and, you know, continue to do what they've been doing. On our end, what, you know, basically Chuck, and maybe sometimes Paul are able to look at these things and then just make sure that they're being addressed by the city, which means Chuck would literally probably, you know, communicate with either you, Fernando, or somebody else from Good Sam or from CityNet. So rather than having multiple logins and passwords and all that stuff, it's just cleaner if you guys use the same system that you're using because it's used across all the boundaries and jurisdictions. And then from our side, we can just let the individual who's contacting City Hall, let them know. So
Got it.
Chuck, I don't know if you had another idea, but I think that's been working.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that's, yeah, thank you.
And that's
I
why
don't
we're
know,
all here
anyone-
together.
Everyone can raise their hand if they want another account to check and, you know, check and then submit. No takers? Okay, good. Me neither. So, so
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate all this conversation between the community members, between our service providers and the city. This is really valuable for all of us that are trying to work on these issues. So we appreciate you all being here today. Take care, everyone. Have a good morning.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
thank you. Take care.
Thank you.